I always wanted to have a girlfriend, but I didn't believe that I could have one. Growing up, I was trained to believe that sex was my duty, something I traded for my family's security. I lost my virginity in my family's storage locker on the top of a round black coffee table. My stepdad told me that this was how younger women had been initiated into sex since the beginning of time. I felt so hurt and confused and abandoned, and yet somehow special. As an adult, I chose a man with a large sexual appetite. He was a loving father and a good provider. But he had no interest in learning the intricacies of how to pleasure my body. And over the 9 years of our marriage, my sex became a caged, starving hummingbird. The more he reached for me, the more I would pull away in disgust. But I knew at some point I couldn't keep him this way much longer. So I looked for solutions. I brought home a book called Peace Between the Sheets. He took one look at the book and he threw it across the room because he just wanted to get his cock off. We tried a practice called orgasmic meditation. And as I lay there with my legs spread open, undressed from the waist down, he started to stroke my clit. I asked him to slow down. You're supposed to be surrendering. That was the end of that practice and our marriage. In my newfound freedom, I opened up the cage, and the hummingbird slowly started to sip nectar from flower to flower as my orgasm came back to life. Yet I only dated men who identify as the sex assigned to them at birth, also known as cisgendered men. I was about to go into my next long-term monogamous relationship with a cisgendered man when that whispering voice at the back of my mind started to shout, "You've always wanted to date women. Why don't you let yourself have it?" I knew it was time. I decided to say yes. I needed to taste the rainbow. So I texted a friend who happens to run the diversity center. I said, "Can you help set me up on a date?" I had no idea how to find one. She said, "What are you looking for?" "I want to date women. Well, not just cis women, even trans women, or maybe a trans man. I want something different." So I went out on some blind dates. And then one day, I found myself having a spontaneous lunch with a colleague. Now, when I first met her, we're both birth doulas in the birth community. And when I first met her, I wasn't sure if I liked her. The truth is, I was intimidated by her intelligence because she, as a prenatal chiropractor, knew far more than I did about birth anatomy. As we sat eating our burgers and fries, the conversation drifted from reviewing births to a more interesting topic, my newfound dating life. And as I told her about my most recent hot date, she leaned in, her blue eyes sparkling, her ringlets framing her face. And I found out she also likes women. In that moment, I didn't realize that I was attracted to her. But as we said goodbye, I found myself flirting. You're so hot when you get all geeky about birth anatomy. Soon we went on our first real date. She took me out to a fancy restaurant where we spent hours telling stories about births and our lives. And then she took me back to her place. It was decorated perfectly with fluffy white and blue pillows on her bed. And as we got closer to being intimate, I found myself shedding some tears because there was something inside me so vulnerable, just longing to be touched. And then our lips met, and the softness of her kiss felt so familiar. And as the layers peeled off, I felt our breasts touch for the first time. And my kisses traced their way down her neck, to her chest, to her breasts, licking and tasting, and then down her belly, along her voluptuous feminine form to her thighs, and then to her pussy. And when I tasted her, I felt this overwhelming, lifelong desire to fuck a woman. And I did. And when I fucked her, I felt her orgasm come in waves of pleasure, her back arcing as she contracted, and my body became alive and electric. And I wanted her to touch me. And when she did it for my pleasure and for hers, but not to take anything. I always wanted to have a girlfriend, but what I really wanted is far beyond the gender binary. It's vulnerable intimacy and the freedom to love whoever I want to love.